Welcome back, guys, to the California Gardener, now living in British Columbia on the west coast. And I'm sorry I haven't posted a video in a long time, but we've been out of our house for a couple of years. So this is our first year back, and we threw some seeds in here in the spring. It was a little bit difficult getting this garden to go this year. And as you see, we're still working on the landscaping.
Look at my pumpkin.
Look, my daughter planted a little pumpkin seed here on the side in one of our other berry areas, and it's growing like crazy. She's surprised. The greenhouse is making cucumbers already. But I wanted to let you know, because we didn't plant anything or take care of this garden area for a couple years, and the weeds were unreal. Like, they were growing 5 feet tall over this garden. So they were obviously making a lot of seeds and producing very heavily in this garden area. So starting a garden was very difficult because the weed growth was so intense that when we'd plant the seeds and start things watering, the whole garden would just turn right to weeds. So we've been weeding persistently, and finally I think we're maybe catching up a little bit. We had some plants, tomatoes, die earlier in the year in this area just because such heavy weed growth, and but the rest of the garden seemed to survive. We had to fertilize more. I think I didn't realize on the west coast your garden soil will be, I guess, more acidic, so people add lime and magnesium to their soil because this gets washed out with all the rain here. We get about 50 inches of rain in the year, but it usually comes in the winter months. So I think that reduces the availability of the nutrients. So this was amenable by just adding more fertilizer, like fish fertilizer, and fertilizer like Miracle-Gro, which helped kickstart things, because the first month or two things really didn't grow. It was pretty disappointing. But now, as you see, it shot off and is growing like crazy. And we'll just take you around, look at a few things. We got some big zucchinis growing under here. Look off one plant. Oh, can you see? Yeah, look at all those. We got nice zucchinis growing under here. Big one under there. And of course we got dill growing everywhere because it's a weed too. And that's the only thing we like about weeds is dill. It can come up voluntarily. Actually, even a volunteer dill seems to grow better than the ones you plant from the store. So we just let them grow where they are and pick the dill off because we love adding it to our salads and food in general. But what would I do next time if I was to ever leave a garden untaken care of, or not taken care of for several years? Or what would I do? Well, to prevent the weed growth, I mean, you could use chemicals every year and spray it, but if you don't want to do that, and it's not great to spray your garden, you could do what I would recommend, which was, I wish I laid a heavy layer of wood chips over the area, like the tree cutting chips where it's mixed leaves, branch, and bark mulch. That would have worked if I put a 4 to 6 inch layer over the whole garden. I would have had added nutrients to my garden, not as much of a washout effect from the heavy rains, and it would have prevented that heavy weed growth that really inhibited our growing this season. So that's one thing. Or an easier way, if you don't want to get chips, you can just get a big tarp and spread that tarp over the dirt and lay it down, nail it down in the corners, or put some rocks and 2x4s on top, and that'll prevent anything from growing as well, because the sunlight will be locked out and it'll be dry under there, so the weeds will all be held down. So those are my 2 ideas that I'll do for next time if I'm not gonna till an area or plant something. I would say cover it up so you don't have this extreme weed growth like we have. Like, look at this pile of weeds I just pulled out today. It's huge. All these ones right here, gonna compost down. It's just a pain. Weeds are a pain. Gotta do everything you can to limit that weed growth. Look at these volunteer kales that we have growing from when I had last planted the garden. One had survived and had gone to seed a couple seasons, so they're planted all over the garden. You see all these nice, I think this is like the red Russian kale growing all over in between our plants. We just let them grow and I didn't plant any extra kale. These are some Cinderella pumpkins I planted from old seed. I got some, yeah, some growing over there. Some little guys going, so we'll see how big they get this year. There's a little guy right there. And this area right here used to be actually covered by a gravel platform. So I dug up the gravel, just put a little bit dirt in there, and it doesn't have much weed growth at all because it wasn't an area where weeds grew. So I planted the tomatoes. They're doing quite nicely. I haven't pruned these or anything. I'm just letting them grow, and I planted them a lot later than everything else. You see they're shooting up because this area's never been planted before. Had some new soil. Looks beautiful. Plants are growing great. And you grew corn? Yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll be giving you some more garden updates and tips. But that's mine. If you're ever not planting in an area for the year, make sure you cover it up so it doesn't get the weeds blowing in and weeds overpopulating your garden, because it makes it harder to start it next time you do want to garden. Okay guys, say goodbye.